You ever have that feeling where you're playing a game that looks stunning, has a budget bigger than most movies, and yet you're bored out of your mind within 30 minutes? I used to think something was wrong with me. Maybe I was just burnt out. Maybe I was getting too old for games. But then I launched an emulator, played a pixelated side-scroller from 1992, and suddenly I was smiling like a kid again. No tutorials, no microtransactions, just gameplay. Hey everyone, Retro Gamer here. And today I want to talk about why I've almost completely stopped playing AAA games, and why retro and indie games have become my comfort zone, my escape, and honestly my joy. This isn't some AAA bad, indie good rant. I'm not trying to be edgy or contrarian. This is just one gamer sharing his shift in perspective, and maybe you'll relate more than you expect. So let's rewind. When I was younger, AAA games were the dream. Midnight launches, collector's editions, trailers at E3 that gave you goosebumps. I still remember seeing the first trailers for Crysis, Assassin's Creed 2, Need for Speed Most Wanted, and being blown away. I thought, games can't get better than this. And for a while, it didn't need to. Back then, gameplay still came first. Sure, graphics were improving, but there was still soul. Stories had heart. Mechanics were tight. Even when the tech was limited, devs made magic. But over time, something started to shift. We began seeing trends. Open worlds that felt empty, endless fetch quests, games launching with massive day-one patches, and features locked behind season passes or deluxe editions. And then the worst offender, microtransactions in single-player games. At some point, games stopped being games. They became products, polished, yes. Cinematic, sure, but hollow. It was like eating a beautifully decorated cake that tastes like cardboard. And you know what really hit me? I remember booting up a recent big-budget title. Won't name names, but you can probably guess. And after all the pre-release hype, the trailers, the early reviews, I played for 2 hours and felt nothing. No thrill, no immersion, just checkbox fatigue. Then one day, out of sheer boredom, I launched Hotline Miami again. I played years ago. It's brutal, fast-paced, neon-drenched pixel madness. It took less than 60 seconds to throw me into the action. No hand-holding, no nonsense. And I was addicted again. That was the turning point. I started revisiting more classics. Max Payne 2, Doom, NFS Underground 2, even the old Contra and Road Rash. And then I dove into indie gems, Celeste, Hollow Knight, Dead Cells, Hyper Light Drifter, Katana Zero. Games made by tiny teams, sometimes just one person, with more creativity and passion than half the AAA industry. What I found was something I've been missing for a long time: pure, focused game design. These games didn't need 4K textures or ray trace puddles. They had gameplay loops that hooked you, soundtracks that stuck in your head, challenges that felt fair but tough. And most importantly, they respected your time. One of the best things about retro and indie games is how they trust the player. They don't explain everything. They don't shove endless pop-ups in your face. They let you explore, experiment, fail, and learn. Modern AAA games often treat you like someone who's never held a controller. Press X to jump. Hold R2 to aim. Use the right stick to look around. Yeah, no kidding. I get it, tutorials have their place, but when you're still getting pop-ups 3 hours in a game, that's not onboarding. That's babysitting. Meanwhile, in a retro game, you either figure it out or you die. And somehow that felt good. It felt earned. And here's the other thing. Indie and retro games are just more personal. AAA studios are big corporations. You can feel the layers of marketing, monetization, and safe design decisions in every aspect. But indie devs? They're making what they love. Games with weird ideas, bold mechanics, and real heart. Take Undertale. That game blew me away with its emotional depth and subversion of genre tropes. Take Cuphead. Hand-drawn animation, brutally hard gameplay. A love letter to old cartoons and old-school gamers. Even something like Vampire Survivors, a game that looks like a Flash game from 2003, is more addictive and satisfying than 80% of what launched this year. And look, I'm not saying all AAA games are bad. There are still gems. I love God of War Ragnarok. Resident Evil 4 Remake was excellent. Elden Ring, masterpiece. But those are the exceptions now, not the rule. Most AAA games today feel like a committee-designed product, not an artistic vision. And I think that's why so many gamers, myself included, are drifting back to the past or forward to the indie scene. Because when you strip away all the fancy graphics and cinematic trailers, what really matters is how a game makes you feel. Does it challenge you? Does it surprise you? Does it make you want to keep playing, even after you've lost count of the hours? Retro and indie games do that, not by being bigger, but by being better. So yeah, these days, I'm not chasing every AAA release. I'm replaying the classics. I'm discovering hidden indie gems. And honestly, I'm having more fun than ever. I'd rather play a pixelated, 2-hour game that surprises me than a $70 AAA monster that checks every box but forgets to be fun. Gaming, at its core, is about play, joy, challenge, connection. And for me, right now, that lives in the retro shelf and the indie store. Thanks for listening to this rant-turned-heartfelt monologue. If you felt any of this in your soul, drop a comment and tell me. What's one game you keep going back to, no matter how old it is? Or better yet, share your favorite underrated indie game. I'm always on the hunt. If you like this video, you know the deal. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. But seriously, thank you for hanging out with me today. Next week, I'm dropping a deep dive into 5 indie games that I think are better than anything AAA in 2025. Trust me, you won't want to miss that. Until then, stay retro, stay weird, and most importantly, stay playing what you love. Peace.